Hi everyone, this is a very special edition of the Philly Roots Rugby Round Table. My guest today, normally we have 2 or 3 guests and we talk about an issue in grassroots rugby in the UK, for those who have not watched or listened. But this truly is an honour and certainly something I was never going to pass up. We have today the former WWE champion, former 3-time tag team champion, and if it wasn't for this bloody pandemic, he would have been in the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2020. But he's very much involved in rugby in America. We're going to chat a lot about that. But it's a pleasure to welcome Mr. John Bradshaw Layfield. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. It's very kind of you. I'm a former everything. I'm like a typical old athlete. I got called the other day. They wanted me to be in some movie. It was actually a pretty cool role. To have no idea if I have a chance to getting it, but it was basically an old athlete that still dresses like they were in the '80s. And he was a high school coach. I said, that's not exactly a stretch. That's not Al Pacino type acting. That's just me being me.
But sir, yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. The wrestling fan in me, and if anyone knows me, knows how big of a wrestling fan I am, knows how much of a fan of you I am as well. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It was all very last minute, but we want to chat rugby, so let's chat rugby. What was your first sort of rugby experiences? Did you grow up with it? How did you find it? How did you fall in love with our great game?
No, we didn't have rugby in Texas when I was growing up. Now they have rugby hotspots. Austin is a good hotspot. I know Todd, Captain America, has got a big stake in the Austin MLR team. They got a great franchise down in Houston. They got a lot of college rugby on. I understand. I think they're getting a franchise up in Dallas. I mean, there's a lot of rugby now. But when I was in high school back in early '80s and college in the late '80s, there wasn't much rugby. My college roommate had played, I think, on the under-20 national team of South Africa. I think he played at a fairly high level before he came to college. And one of my college roommates, we had a suite where a bunch of guys were in basically communal place. And that's my first introduction to rugby. I thought it was really cool. And then when I moved to Bermuda for about 8 or 9 years, I really got indoctrinated kind of into rugby. I just always really enjoyed the sport. I started watching it a lot when I was in Europe. When I was in Bermuda. And then when I started up a program to work with at-risk kids, rugby's the perfect sport. It's just like soccer, the beautiful game. You only need a ball. You can play 5-on-5. You can play 10-on-10, 15-on-15. You don't need a lot of equipment. It was perfect to work with at-risk, low-income kids.
So what you said, it's the perfect game. What parts of the game did you fall in love with? Was it the physicality? Was it the community spirit that rugby has?
I think all of it. Every rugby player I've met's been fun. I went down to when I was in WWE. We're down in good grief, Auckland and Wellington. Met a lot of the players down there that played. We're down all over Australia. Met one of the national teams when I was there. Just had a fun time with these guys. They're just fun people. Rugby guys are fun guys to be around. They love life. They live large. They enjoy just sitting around and good banter. And so I kind of fell in love with the game around the game. And as more I watched it, the more I enjoyed the game. I think the game's, to me, it's the game. I'm surprised it hadn't taken off more in America. I think it will now. But to me, it's a real American game. Just a lot of guys, a lot of tough guys and girls now going out there and beating the heck out of each other.
Do you wish you had played when you were a bit younger? Because I know you played American football at a really good level. But
I would love to have played. I remember there's Dean Denton, I think it was, the number 8 from Scotland. I thought, man, that's what I'd like to be when I grow up. I'd love to. I don't know if I could have played it or not. I don't know if I was good enough, but would love to have been a number 8 somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually going to be my next question. What if you had played? What position? So number 8.
I would hope number 8. To me, that's the spot. I love the big guys in the middle that kind of control things. It seems like a lot of fun.
I think that would be perfect for you. Or you can come and join me in the second row. We can be the engine room. That clothesline arm, proper good grip.
Exactly.
So you mentioned there about Bermuda and the Beyond Rugby charity that you set up. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And as well as I can see you're wearing a Memphis Inner City Rugby shirt. Tell us more about those projects and what the work that's going into them.
Yeah, thanks. I'd love to. I was down in Cape Town 2010 for the Soccer Football World Cup. And I remember the vuvuzelas were terrible back then, the worst things ever invented. So I was in the bar trying to get the vuvuzelas out of my ear and having a bunch of beers. And I basically, all I remember was talking to a guy with cauliflower ears. So I knew it was either a MMA guy or a rugby guy. I wasn't sure which one. And the next morning my phone rang and I thought, oh my goodness, I must have promised that guy I would do something with him. And it was Nick Keller, the founder of Beyond Sports out of London. And I said, what did I promise you I would do? He said, you promised me we would go to the shanty town. I said, can't we just go to the wharf and get robbed? It'd be so much easier. And it wouldn't take up our whole day. And he said, no, we're going to visit a sports program, the Mighty Milers, that uses sport to help kids get out of poverty areas and get them educated and kind of gets a carrot to get them in so they can get them job skills. And I said, man, that sounds awesome. So we went out and visited this shanty town. And I saw how sport can transform lives. And I thought, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And so I was just moved to Bermuda, and I'd seen all the problems with the gangs there, the murders, the knifings, the different problems they have, the dropout rate in schools. So I called Nick, and I said, I'd love to start up a sports program like I saw in Cape Town and do something for these same low-income type kids. Yeah. And he said, the perfect sport is rugby. And I said, well, I love rugby. I think it's a wonderful sport. I'd love to do something like that. So that's how the whole idea kind of got started. And we took Bermuda from, we're not sure what the dropout rate was because like a lot of governments, they fudge the numbers, but it was significantly high in the low income areas. Our kids we worked with, we had 100% graduation rate out of these kids. The kids were not in gangs. The kids were not getting incarcerated. The first day we had rugby, one of the kids that was going to be in our program got murdered coming to the program. You know, we had a lot of trouble. We had a lot of issues, but the rugby was the one thing that kind of transformed these kids that were kind of neglected and kind of left out. Now rugby's in all the public schools in Bermuda. It's part of the curriculum. And then through that, I found a group out of Memphis Inner City Rugby, Shane Young, who just does an incredible job there working with inner city kids.
That's amazing. That's absolutely brilliant. So what's your involvement in that? Are you just guiding them through, or are you a bit more hands-on? Do you pass?
I wish I was a coach. I don't know enough about it, and I don't live in Memphis, so I'm not qualified to do either. But I'd love to just be working with those kids every single day. But living in DC, obviously I can't, and I'm not sure I'm even qualified to do what Shane Young does. Not what he does, but even what the coaches do. They do a wonderful job with those kids. I would love to be there working daily with them. I'm on the board there for Shane. I helped with fundraisers, and so I always say we, but it's really they. You know, it's really Shane and his group that are doing this incredible work. Let me give you a little stat here from Memphis. Please. It's one of the worst child poverty areas in the United States. There's a 60% dropout rate among kids that are in that low-income area. In Memphis Inner City Rugby, those same kids are not only graduating at 100%, but 100% of those kids are going somewhere after high school, either college, military, or trade school. I mean, they're completely changing the inner city there. It's just a wonderful program. I'm so proud to be associated with it.
That's amazing. That really is amazing. And you know, I hope the work continues, and I'm sure it will, even in these sort of troubled times in America. I'm sure, you know, rugby can be the thing that brings people together. And
and right now there's not much rugby going on, you know, because of social distancing, because of COVID. So Shane Young has transformed this program. In fact, we got a board meeting this week. I can't wait to hear all the updates. They're doing incredible work down there now with remote learning. So when you have schools that are no longer in session because of the pandemic, these kids who are in the inner city, who are in the low-income areas, they're not able to go to school because of the pandemic, but they're not able to go to school remotely either. They don't have computers. Yeah. They don't have Wi-Fi. So Shane arranged to set up a learning center. Teach for America donated a room. Mike Novogratz, the hedge fund billionaire, incredibly philanthropic guy, who started a great program, Beat the Streets, out of New York and Philadelphia, and several different programs, donated money for the computers. And Shane now has got these young kids who come in there. They also give them a little food, because a lot of these kids, the only meal they got during the day was at school. And so you're helping these kids not lose an entire generation, because the problem right now, at least in America, with school shut down, those kids who don't have that remote learning because of where they are and where they live, you could lose an entire generation. So they've transformed, at least temporarily, from a rugby program, still doing a little rugby stuff, just kind of here and there, but most of it is remote learning to make sure these kids aren't lost and fall through the cracks because of this pandemic.
Yeah, I'm sure that could quite easily happen at the moment if they've got nothing to sort of guide them through life as we know it at the moment. Then that's when things tend to sort of become awry. So let's go back to rugby a little bit. What are your thoughts on the state of the game in America? As you said, it's now in public schools in places like Bermuda. Is it growing at school and university level?
It's hard to say. You know, people always talk about it's the fastest growing sport in America. I'm not sure if it is or not. People have debated whether these numbers are legit or not. I have no idea. It seems to be growing, yes. The pro league certainly helps. You know, we're a league that couldn't dream of competing, at least not now, maybe 10 years from now with the premiership and the big top 14, the great programs over there where you guys are. But it certainly helps having a pro league. I worked a lot with the DC group here, wonderful group. Paul Sheehy is one of the owners. John Manson, who came out of the Glasgow group, Warriors group, is doing some great things. Met with Coach Andrew the other day. They're really doing a lot of great things, not only about building a great pro team, but they want to build academies all the way down to primary schools. And they want to do it for the right reasons. They want to help kids not just learn the sport, but also graduate. I think they're doing the proper things to grow the game. So, yeah, I think the game is growing. I think our national team, which has done really well, it's all relative. It's hard for us to ever compete with a top 8 team. We got we beat Scotland last year it was. They had a few players missing, but that's okay. You play with the players on the field. It was a huge win for us, probably the biggest win since the 1924 Olympics when we won the gold medal back in the day. But our sevens group is awesome. I mean, Perry Baker and Danny Barrett, those guys, Carla Niles, they're fantastic athletes, and they do really well. I think for America to really grow the sport, you need two things. You need a good pro league, which I think they're developing. It really is a shame it got cut short because of COVID this past year. And you need good international success, which the sevens team is having. And the 15s team, I think, is headed the right direction. They're a fun team to watch. They put up 40 points. Sometimes they give up 50. But they're a fun team to watch. They hit people hard. They throw the ball around. I love our 15s team.
Yeah, Paul Ezekie in that game against Scotland where he went in from 50 meters. Oh, what a man! What a wrecking ball! And a great singer as well. Check out his Twitter feed.
I was in Bermuda. We have a weekly golf game, and all the guys were giving me hell about the fact that USA was going to lose so bad to Scotland that night. And I assumed we probably would. I'm behind our guys 100%, but I'm realistic. I didn't think we really had a chance. And so many of the guys that play in that weekly golf game we have were from Scotland. They were just for hours writing me about the game. The next week, of course, USA wins. I can't wait to get back. And Blaine Scully calls me, the captain of the USA team, and says, "Hey, I'm in Bermuda. I know what you're doing with at-risk kids. Would love to see something." I said, "Well, we don't have a program going right now, but I'll take you golfing." And he goes, "I'd love to." So he goes, next week I'll walk into the golf match with the captain of the USA rugby team against all the Scots. They're going, "You got to be kidding me. You flew this guy in just for this?" Blaine's a wonderful guy. We had a great afternoon together. All the guys loved him, but it was really funny that he was there the week after the USA got to beat Scotland.
I think he's just left Cardiff, I believe, isn't he?
I think he has, yeah.
But
he's such a good athlete. He was an All-American in a couple different sports. I think Stanford was his school, and he played golf, hadn't played years, and he ended up playing very well at the end because we were competing for some money, not very much. And, he's a very competitive guy. He helped us win the tournament that day.
It was rumored that you were part of the New York franchise group. Is that the case, or is that not the case anymore?
I was looking to be. It didn't work out. And I'm kind of glad it didn't. I don't live in New York, and so it wouldn't have been easy for me. I would love to be part of an ownership committee somewhere. Don't know if that'll ever work out or not, but I'm very excited about the group here in D.C. I'm not even in talks to be in the ownership, but I'm in talks to help with some of the academies with primaries and the secondary schools.
That's awesome. Eddie Jones has just signed on to be one of the coaches at San Diego. which is
I,
huge as a bit of a
I was
consultant.
surprised at that. I'm very fearful for our DC guys. But yeah, that's huge. I think that's wonderful. And I think you're going to start seeing some of that. People come into America for different opportunities. They've already had their opportunities in different places. They come here. It's a new place for opportunities. Pele ended up his career here. And, if Messi would have ended up going to Man City, he probably would have ended up his career in New York with the New York football club up there.
And Chris Robshaw, the form, only sort of stopped being England captain in the last few years, and he's coming to San Diego as well. So that
helps tremendously. And DC had Tendai here this past year, the Beast out of South Africa, wonderful person. He did a lot of work in the inner cities, was just as affable as he could be. I had lunch with him a couple times. Wonderful human being, but he also did a lot of work in growing the game, which I think is very important for these superstars and international celebrities when they go to places like America that is growing the game, to be part of that growing.
Definitely. It's the same effect that David Beckham had on Major League Soccer. That's what they should be shooting for the sky for. You had a World Cup winner in the Beast and Ma Nonu last year, and I know, and Bastero at New York, and obviously they all got cut short because of this bloody pandemic, and now hopefully next year with a few more guys like Robshaw and hopefully Ma Nonu sticks around. More stars will pop over for a couple of years and build the game, because I think if we've got a strong game in America, then the world game is going to be better for it.
Yeah, I think so. I think America is such a big place as far as economically. So much GDP comes out of America, and it'd be good to have America in that world stage, which we're not now. We're at 14 or 15, I think, is our 15s team. Of course, our 7s.
Oh no! Aha! There you are. Sorry, we lost you. I lost you there for a second.
Sorry, my internet down here in my basement sometimes is not good. Maybe
that's fine. You've got some great stuff in your basement, by the way. That's
from China and from South Africa.
Lovely. Okay, well, it'd be silly of me being a lifelong wrestling fan not to ask you a couple of wrestling questions. Who in the WWE locker room is a rugby fan?
Well, of course, all the European guys. Finley from Ireland. Seamus is a huge rugby fan. Wade Barrett is a bit more of a football fan, but also likes his bit of rugby. Earl Crabtree, Huddersfield, the rugby league. His uncle, Big Daddy. Earl. I was hoping that he would come into wrestling, when he was still young enough. But he had such a good deal at Huddersfield, had been there for so long that he didn't really have a desire. But what a wonderful guy. He would have been great in our business, by the way.
He would have.
So there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that do like it. Most of them are Europeans.
Oh, that's great. And I know that a few years ago, Cesaro's first gimmick was meant to be the Swiss rugby player.
That's right.
Is the story of Vince watching a rugby match and going, "Oh, I want to be that. I think we need someone like him." Is that true? Has Vince watched a rugby match?
I don't know. I've talked to Vince about rugby. I talked to him about the MLR. But I don't know where he got the idea for Cesaro. I mean, I think he just wanted like a good old hard character, and what more hard character than a top 14 rugby player?
Absolutely.
I think it just kind of fit in perfectly for Cesaro, and I don't know where Vince got the idea for
it. Would any rugby players that you've seen? I know you mentioned Owen Farrell in a tweet the other day, which got picked up by a few people about his clothesline tackle. He would make it great in the WWE. Is there anyone else that you've seen other than sort of Earl and people like that would make a great wrestler? Yeah.
I think Mauro Itoje would be a great wrestler. Mauro's come over to Bermuda a couple times there at Saracens. I remember watching him when he was, good grief, he must have been 19 at the time. I don't know how old he is now. And they were doing lineouts
older
at Saracens. And I remember calling over my mate Gareth Noakes, who helped me run the charity and then ran the charity for a while there in Bermuda. Runs now a charity, CEO of Bubesi Pride Foundation, a wonderful group out of East Africa that's running programs in Malawi and Kenya, a lot of places. I called Gareth over and I said, "Look at this young kid. He's getting everything within 8 feet of him." You're watching a prodigy. And sure enough, he became the man. I think Morrow, who's a very intelligent guy, would be great at it.
Definitely, I agree. He's a big guy, but he's great personality as well. Big shoulders. I think he'd fit right in. Which WWE superstars would make it best in rugby?
Oh, Brock Lesnar. Are you kidding me? I'd love Brock Lesnar to be on a rugby pitch somewhere. Good grief, he'd kill somebody. Yeah, I think it'd be great.
What position? If you were number 8, what position would you like him to be on your team?
I hope he's not the other number 8. I've been in the ring with Brock. That didn't work out too well for me.
So yeah, let's have a little chat about wrestling. I'm sure you get asked all these questions all the time, but what is your highlight of your wrestling career?
And I got to mention one other thing, by the way. Corbacero is a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
and,
Alex. Yeah.
If I didn't mention Corbacero in rugby, he would call me. So I got to say, Alex would be great, whether he would be or not. I think Alex would be great. But I got to be sure to say that before I mention Captain America Todd. But Corbacero would call me on that one. It's the career I had was. I'm very happy with it. I wish it could have gone longer. I had a lot of injuries. In fact, I broke my back in London in Earl's Court in a match, a threat match in Earl's Court. That's what caused me to retire. And I wish that hadn't happened, but I had to retire at some point anyway. I think not winning the championship, I think that was obviously the highlight probably of people look at my career, but how long I held it and how many times I had to defend it and against so many different people. When I was done with that championship run and John Cena got the title from me at WrestleMania, and you talk about doing well.
He's done all right.
He's done okay. We knew he was going to do well. I don't think anybody dreamed he'd do it like he's done. He's a wonderful person. He'd be a great rugby player. Strong as he could be, fast, tough. He'd be a great rugby player. But after that, I was just done. My body had wore out. I'd been doing it a long time. I played American football, and it was time to retire. I wrestled a little bit longer, but that I think was the highlight of my career. Was just not just winning the title, but how long I had it and going out every night and defending it.
You had an incredible series with Eddie Guerrero. A friend of mine asked me to ask you what was the night where you both lost a lot of blood. What was the sort of the aftermath in the back area, when you both came back and you lost that much blood? I think it was a bull rope match.
No, it was right. It was actually right before the bull rope match. I lost some blood in the bull rope match too. Eddie didn't, but the match before was, I think it was called Judgment Day. It was in the Staples Center. In fact, we set an attendance record at the Staples Center that night. Roy Jones Jr., the boxer, I think broke it years later. But I didn't know how much blood there was. I didn't. When I watched it back, I was shocked at how much blood loss there was, especially from Eddie. At the time, you think you would recognize it, but I didn't. I mean, I knew there was a lot of blood, but I didn't. I mean, there were pools of blood on the mat from Eddie. And we got back to the back, and I was pretty much okay. Eddie passed out in the back. Eddie had to be taken to the hospital, and they told me that Eddie's getting in a fight with a doctor. Would you come talk to him? And I said, his nephew Chabo's there. I don't know anything I can do. And literally I went in there and they had him on a gurney and he was about to fight him. He was, he's a little bit out of it. And I said, Eddie, they need to take you to the hospital. And Eddie just relaxed. He goes, okay. And that was it. He had seen his opponent that he had shed so much blood with, and I told him what they needed, and he just calmed down and relaxed. It was Eddie's a tough guy. We had no idea that much blood was going to happen. I had no idea at the time that much blood had been spilled until I saw it back. The whole match just kind of got thrown out, and it ends up becoming kind of an instant classic, which was fortunate for me and fortunate for Eddie, and more fortunate that somebody didn't get hurt worse than what happened.
Definitely. Another friend of mine who will remain nameless asked me to ask you whether you thought that it was a really good idea that Triple H didn't work Tuesdays.
I thought it was because I got to be champion a long time.
If anyone doesn't know, there's a brilliant interview that I think Paul Heyman did, didn't he? ECW's reunion show in 2005, and he mentioned that how John wouldn't have been champion if it wasn't for the fact that Triple H didn't want to work Tuesday nights.
I'm glad he did. You know, that was great. Paul Heyman and I are good friends, and you know, it's funny back. You know, a lot of times when you have stuff like that, you don't tell the other guy you're going to say something like that because you want the reaction. It's good. You know, it's just good banter. And I was sitting there making fun of Paul Heyman for bouncing checks and all this stuff. and he caught me with a pretty good line, which it's stuck with Paul and I both ever since, which is great. We enjoyed it afterwards, and we enjoy it to this day when people bring it up.
How much involvement do you have in wrestling at the moment? Do you still working on the pre-shows and commentary? Yeah,
I did a pre-show. I did something with one of their big stars, Keith Lee, this past pay-per-view, just to kind of get somebody on air, you know, that was older with Keith. And I enjoyed it. Great young guy. I'm just doing mainly the pay-per-views every single week now. I'm sorry, every single month now. They were every week for 2 weeks in a row. and I enjoy it. I don't come around that often, so I enjoy being back. It's unbelievable what WWE has done with the Thunderdome.
Yeah, it's incredible. It
cost them a fortune.
I bet.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And seeing it in person, I wanted to see it. It's really amazing.
I love it. I think actually it's probably turned a corner since the Performance Center era, we'll call it. I think actually the shows have got better because people, the performance kids have got that arena atmosphere again.
Yeah, I don't know how these guys performed with no crowd. I called WrestleMania. I did the commentary, and it was so tough because when you see something huge happen, usually the crowd reacts for 10, 15 seconds sometimes, and you just lay out and let the crowd react. When there's no crowd, you talk over it, and it feels so unnatural doing that. I can't imagine these guys in the ring competing. We called a ladder match. These guys were killing themselves, falling off these ladders and all this crazy stuff, and there was no crowd. So there was no reaction. It's just kudos to those guys for what they did.
Do you think it could make a better performer?
I don't know. I think time will tell. I think it's a different type of performer because I think the match that I think Sami Zayn had with Daniel Bryan, where they just talked to each other the whole time, you never got to hear that before. I mean, at one point, Sami Zayn was crying in the ring. it was hilarious. I thought it was awesome. You never see that before because you rely so much on the crowd. So it's a different kind of performer, and only your really good guys will be able to adapt to that, as the really good guys can adapt to basically anything. I don't know how it does long term. I think it'll probably make these guys better, yes, because the more different ways you learn to get over, the easier it is to get over in a variety of ways going forward.
Definitely, and we'll call this the final question. But if you were to give one clothesline from hell one more time to a rugby player, past, present, who would you give it to?
I think I gave one to, was it Alex Good? I gave one to on the game.
I think I've seen that. Yeah, I think I've seen that.
Alex told me, he said, give me a clothesline. I love Alex, a good guy. And he said, give me a clothesline. And I said, where are we going to land? He goes, it doesn't matter. I said, Alex, I'm 50. It matters to me. It doesn't matter to you. You're young and you're going to be fine. So I don't know. I'm a big fan, and there's certainly nobody that I just would love to clothesline. I thought the whole Owen Farrell thing was, good grief, man. I mean, you have a high tackle, guy gets penalized, kind of like the U.S. Open right now.
Yeah.
Djokovic hits this ball, and by mistake it hits this poor woman. It's just people overreact to stuff, and that was the whole thing with Owen Farrell, and I'm a big fan of Owen Farrell. I love when England got in that V against the All Blacks. He's back there with that sinister smile.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is, it was certainly an image that England fans will never forget. That's for sure. John, I just want to let's wrap it up on that note because I think it's absolutely incredible. Would you just tell the people how they can find out more about Bermuda and Memphis Inner City Rugby for me?
Yep, Memphis Inner City Rugby is You can find it on Twitter. You can find it on Instagram. You can find it on so many different places. Shane Young is the guy who runs that organization, surrounded by a multitude of incredible people. And I think it's probably the best, or one of the best, certainly one of the best, maybe the best charity in the world. Bubesi Pride, my good friend Gareth Noakes is the CEO of now. They do wonderful work down in Malawi. They're expanding the game down in East Africa. And Bermuda is Beyond Rugby. Is our program there in Bermuda that is being run now by some pretty good people. I think we just lost the main guy, Patrick Callow, so hopefully they find somebody to replace him. And Follow the Action is the name of the show, as long as we're putting up billboards.
Of course,
Follow the Action is the one show that I'm working on right now. You can follow on our YouTube. But that is a lot less importance than these wonderful charities that use rugby to change kids' lives.
Well, sir, it's been an absolute honour. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I really appreciate it. I'd love to do this again one day. Next time you're in London, we'll go to a game at Twickenham.
I would love to. I actually came over to a game at Twickenham when Wales played South Africa. Remember that incredible offload during the World Cup?
Yeah.
So I go with a Welshman, Gareth Noakes, and we fly all the way over there. And the whole game, we're with Sereve, the great sevens player. Sereve. So it's me, Gareth, and Sereve, and we go to this game, and the whole game.
Oh no. Oh, we don't.
It's terrible because now we just got to go back to the hotel, which we did. We didn't even go to the welcome zone, the fan zone. Gareth was so mad that his team lost. He bought me a Welsh hoodie, and we went straight back to Bermuda. So I went all the way to Twickenham, watched this great game. I didn't even get to go to the fan zone because Gareth was so mad his team lost, which I understand completely. But that was it. So I've been to Twickenham once and never went to the fan zone.
Well, when you're back in London, this pandemic's over and there's games happening, please come over. I'd love to take you for a beer in the Cabbage Patch, give you the full treatment of Twickenham.
I look forward to it. What a great stadium to be in, a great home of rugby. It's I look forward to that.
Fantastic. John Layfield, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Yeah, we'll see you again soon. Cheers.
Thanks, John.